we are going to begin. Now, last week, or on Monday even, I don't know, the weeks just kind of merged, don't they, a little bit. I was saying that I would probably kind of continue the Dutch theme by doing a little bit about memento mori. Memento mori is sort of equated to Dutch art because, you know, I was saying that basically if you see flowers in a painting, especially in Dutch paintings, you know, it's talking about the ephemerality of life and so on. And I sat down to write the script and I thought, actually, do you know what? I don't want to do this. Oh God, if it makes me a little bit, not down exactly, but sort of slightly like, don't want to do this. You know, what's it going to do to you? So I thought, well, I'm going to do something different. So, and I was thinking about things and I thought, well, how about introducing you to some slightly weird art? Or something a bit different, something that makes you go, what is that? Why have they done that? And so on. And so I thought, okay, well, I could do my top 10 of weird art. And then I started thinking about it and I got 10 and I got 12 and I got 15 and I got 20 paintings or drawings or whatever. And so I thought, you know what I'm going to do? And I couldn't also pick which one I thought was weirdest. So I thought, well, I'm going to talk about maybe 3 each week on a Thursday, and then after I've talked about them, I'm going to put a couple up on Instagram. I would put all 3 if I talked about 3 on Instagram, but Instagram can't cope with this. So I thought I'd put a couple on Instagram and you could vote on which one you find the weirdest. And then maybe after several weeks, we'll have a top few of the weirdest, and we can have a weird off and make some kind of list of weird art in that way. Either that or it'll all go horribly wrong and I'll completely lose track and I won't know what we're talking about, but well, not what we're talking about, but I'll lose track of which is the weirdest, but we'll have fun along the way, so it doesn't really matter, does it? So I'm going to start with a work that isn't maybe as weird as it is, as it makes me giggle. And I'm starting with this one because this was sort of my gateway into this process of thinking about strange art, or thinking about how to do something a little bit different on Thursday. Now, this to me is a statue that is absolutely joyous in a way that the artist who created it in the 1660s, an Italian artist called Bernini, quite famous, in a way that Bernini could never have possibly imagined. This is in Siena Cathedral in Italy, and it's a saint. It's carved in marble in a chapel in the cathedral. And if you know anything about saints, you will be able to tell exactly who this is straight away. This is another saint that's very easy to recognise, like Saint Sebastian, remember, with all the arrows. And this saint is easy to recognise because if you can tear your way from the drama of the top of the sculpture, you'll see that actually he is standing on a lion. The lion looks a little bit disturbed, I think. And the saint that is always associated with a lion is Saint Jerome. And Saint Jerome is associated with a lion because he was in his monastery one day writing. He was one of the first to translate the Bible. And a lion limped in, and quite naturally most of the monks yelled and scattered, but not Saint Jerome. No, Saint Jerome went and he could tell that there was something wrong with the lion, and he looked at the lion and he took a thorn out of the lion's paw, and in gratitude the lion basically stalked him ever since. So if you ever see a saint with a lion, that will be Saint Jerome. But the thing that makes me laugh, or not really laugh, but giggle about this statue is that, okay, so if you're looking at it from a very religious point of view, as most people would have done, certainly in the 1660s when it was created. They would never have possibly had the thoughts that I have when I look at this statue. So he's clutching this crucifix to him in a moment of passionate contemplation. Or from a modern take, and I'm going to just move the image to this one, I think he might actually just have his eyes closed and he's got his hands there, and in his head he is playing to a stadium of thousands of people. He is rocking his guitar solo, because does this not look like he is completely playing air guitar? Once you've seen it, I don't know whether you got that from when you first looked at this image, or now I've said it, you're like, oh yeah, he kind of does. But I promise you, if you ever go to Siena Cathedral and you look at this statue, you will be thinking, that is the Saint Jerome that is absolutely rocking it. And I think maybe in his head he's got this image. I mean, quite similar. Saint Jerome, Brian May, can you tell the difference? Maybe not. So that's the first one. Maybe, as I said, not so weird, but fun. Just fun. Gotta have fun, haven't you? Fun in this life. And just as a parting shot on this, okay. Top of the screen, self-portrait by Bernini, the artist that created this marble statue. Bottom of the screen, Ashton Kutcher. Similar? Oh yes, I think so. I can't claim credit for that one. That was something I got from the internet. Okay, right. Are you ready for the next image? Now this one, I hope you're not of a delicate disposition, anybody, because here we go with this one. Are you ready for this? Boom! Isn't that brilliant? It just makes me laugh. It's like, whoa, here I am showing off my best feature. Everybody come and have a look. I mean, what is he doing? There are several options. Either he is a notorious flasher, and his friend is very patiently, once again, trying to steer him away from frightening people on the street, because it does look like they are on the street. Or maybe I was thinking that he was berating his tailor, this guy with the saucepan lid on his head. It's like, look, you told me this Velcro would hold and it hasn't worked at all. Okay, so I've put on a little bit of weight, but my clothes keep ripping apart in very unfortunate places. Obviously because Velcro wasn't invented in the 13th century, which is when this dates from. It's neither of those two things, you won't be surprised to hear. This image is taken from if I said 12th century, 13th century, it's almost like a medical journal, basically. So the guy that is holding up his finger is supposed to be a doctor, and I think this poor fellow who is exposing himself for all to see, I think possibly he was supposed to be suffering from scrotal swelling. But if ever there is anybody that I've seen that has been proud of their scrotal swelling, it's him. It's the look on his face that does it for me. Look, boom, there we go. So this is from a 13th century medical journal of sorts, illustrated beautifully, as you can see, and is in fact, yes, it's not a flasher. He has a medical issue. The 13th century version of embarrassing bodies. Okay, right, are you ready for the next one? I'm gonna pop this image up and then just give you a little bit of time for your eyes to adjust, and all I'm going to say is I really, really hope this image is not from a medical journal. It isn't. So it is a game of leapfrog. So if we come to the front parts of the image first, this is a game of leapfrog that has gone very wrong indeed, or very right indeed. I don't know, depends on your point of view. All these things depend on a point of view. So you've got one little putti or cherub. You might not be what you're focusing on, but they have all got wings on their backs, these little three figures in the front of the image. So one is bending over and it looks like sort of they were playing leapfrog, but the one who was leapfrogging him kind of didn't get all the way and just landed on his back, and is holding his hair in quite a demonic fashion or menacing fashion, and his face is definitely a little bit demonic. I mean, look at that little face. He's a meanie, that one. But then it's the action that's going on behind the little cherub that is bent over that is the most disturbing part of this image, I think, because the cherub behind him has a pair of bellows that he is using in, shall we say, a very unorthodox fashion. Orthodox fashion. The dog there, the little yapping dog, I think is it's all a double entendre. It's all, so he's in doggy style as he's bent over on the ground. So who on earth would want an image like this, and what are the people in the back doing? Well, the two younger guys to the right and to the left are looking pretty disturbed and horrified, as well they might. But the two in the centre, look at them, they're sort of looking on in some kind of fascination, I think, and I just want to direct your gaze to this gentleman's hand who's pointing down. And what's he pointing at? So he could be pointing at the putti who are, shall we call it, frolicking in front of him. Or, in fact, he's sort of pointing down to the tip of the sword that the guy on the left-hand side is just resting his hand on. Sword, of course, it's all symbolism. I am slightly worried about the guy with the sword, because I think if we've got a demon in the putti with that little demonic face, this guy, I think he might be a zombie. I'm slightly worried that he is actually the Walking Dead. I don't know. Anyway, pointing to his sword, look at the way that they are wandering along arm in arm. I don't think it would take much imagination to think that these two are more than just good friends. And in fact, this image, let's go back to the full image, just I don't want to deprive you of this work. It's very likely, I was saying, who on earth would want to possibly commission this or have this. It's very likely that it was commissioned by somebody like one of the two gentlemen at the back, probably someone quite rich, because in fact this is just one of 26 very similar images that is in a volume, so a little book. It's ink on vellum. It's on vellum. Vellum being animal skin, so the precursor, what was used more commonly than paper or before paper. So this dates to the middle of the 15th century. So it's got quite a wide date, 1455 to 1465. So not entirely sure. It's in the British Museum, and as I said, it is quite an interesting piece, because obviously this is a very peculiar commission, but the artist is an artist from Bologna called Marco Zoppo, who also did some of the most beautiful religious images. So there's a couple actually in the National Gallery. So and you can see it's very finely, it's very, very beautifully drawn. So the person that commissioned this, unknown as yet, might have had curious taste, but was clearly very wealthy. So there you go. So that's the end of my offering for today. Let's come back onto comments. Have I got a question there? Oh, what's that? Questions. Could it be a surgical gown? Yes, it could be. Oh, I see. Yes, Steve. Yes. So I think Steve was talking about this. Yes, it could possibly be a surgical gown, or it was just a little bit too much to. Oh, there we go. A little bit too much to show him in his nothings. I think it sort of frames, doesn't it? It frames the issue, that gown. You know what I mean? That was great. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of those up. I think you probably guess which two I might put up. If I can put all three up and get you to vote on all three, then I will. But as I said, I don't think Instagram accommodates a choice of three. It's quite a simple system. So I'm going to put two up, and you can vote on which one that you think is the most peculiar. I don't really mind which. I don't mind what your categories are. Let's just go for peculiar, the one that made you laugh most, or the weirdest one, or whatever, and we'll make a little compilation. So, any more comments, or are you just like stunned? I've got more of this stuff. I've got more. As I said, when I started thinking about weird things, it's amazing how many weird works of art there are out there, or at least works of art that look weird to our eyes because we don't understand them, and then once you understand them, it's like or in the case of the last image, maybe it's not quite so but ooh, but there we go. So should be up on stories this afternoon for voting. On Monday I have my image for Monday, and it's sort of vaguely a continuation of a theme of one of these, but it doesn't involve St. Jerome or guitar playing, so I hope you're intrigued. I will look forward to seeing you all on Monday. For now, have a great weekend. Happy VE Day tomorrow. I hope you've got your bunting out. Mum sent me a picture of some bunting that she made earlier, so if you're anywhere near Surbiton, go and wave your flag with her, and I will see you on Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.